flag of our nation and recognize the principles for which it stands. Department 1 is now in session. The Honorable Mark E. Wendell, Judge, presiding.
Please be seated, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome back to Department 1, People versus Robert Durst. Mr. Durst is present. His lawyers are nearby. I've seen them all. I know Mr. DeGuerin, Mr. Chesnoff, Mr. Lewis are all present. Here's Mr. Lewin, Mr. Bailey, and Mr. Miata's at council table. So our jurors and alternates all are present. And Mr. Miata, how are we commencing our day?
First of all, I'd like to start with a stipulation, Your Honor. So I have a single-page stipulation sheet, which I'd like marked for identification as People's 169. It's going to be corresponding with filed stipulation number 23. And the parties stipulate to the following. On March 15, 2015, New York State Police, or NYSP, investigator Joseph Becerra received 64 boxes of materials from witness Susan Giordano. Investigator Becerra stored these boxes at the NYSP headquarters. On May 15, 2015, Investigator Becerra turned over these boxes to Los Angeles County District Attorney Investigator Brian Bennett. Bennett received these boxes and booked them into evidence at the Los Angeles County District Attorney's evidence locker under property number 3706. The following exhibits marked for identification were contained within these boxes. The first is a binder, which I'd like the binder and its contents of 777 pages containing LADA Bates numbers 126886 through 127416, and also LADA 130335 through 130580. We can have those marked for identification as People's Exhibit 170. Next, we have People's Exhibit, we'd like to have marked as People's Exhibit 171, which is a one-page marriage license, LADA Bates stamp 130106. And finally, People's Exhibit 172, which is a 14-page power of attorney. All of these documents were contained within the Susan Giordano boxes. We also have other exhibits that we'll be introducing in the future, but these are the first three. And with that, Your Honor, I'd like to call the people's next witness, which is going to be Eric Van Dorn.
Your Honor, can we explain to the jury that we accommodated the witness's schedule that was on the witness stand?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm interrupting. Of course, we're accommodating that witness's schedule. She'll be back today at 1 o'clock, so we're going to take an early lunch at 11:30. Okay, we'll be return at 1 o'clock so that we can hear that witness. We expect her any cross-examination and redirect examination should be accomplished in 90 minutes. So that'll conclude our day, but just so you're not surprised and so you know what to expect this afternoon and to understand our schedule.
Thanks, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you,
With that,
Mr. Chestnut.
we'll call
I'm going to work in the back.
Yes, Mr. Chestnut.
We'll call Mr. Van Dorn out of order, interrupting Ms. Newman.
Cool effect. I was able to get feedback of it. I didn't know that good feedback.
Morning.
Good morning.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly state that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Okay, please be seated. Thank you. You could please state and spell your first and last name for the record.
Eric Van Dorn, E-R-I-C, V-A-N, capital D-O-R-N.
Thank you.
You may proceed, Mr. Miata.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Mr. Van Dorn, can you please tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what you do for a living?
Yes. Good morning. I am a forensic accountant with the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
And how long have you been employed as a forensic accountant with the FBI?
A little bit over 14 years.
And I'm sorry, if you wouldn't mind adjusting the microphone so you can speak directly into it.
Sure. A little bit over 14 years.
Okay, thank you. And what did you do before you started your career with the FBI?
I worked as a staff accountant for a private
Okay.
company.
And how long did you do that?
I did that a little over 8 years.
Okay. So you have approximately 22 years or so of experience?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. And what qualifies you, as far as your background, training, and experience, to be a forensic accountant for the FBI?
I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in accounting. I am also a certified anti-money laundering specialist.
Okay. And when you say you're a forensic accountant, are you a special agent with the FBI as well, or?
No, sir. Just a forensic accountant.
Okay. And are you considered an investigator in the case involving Robert Durst?
No.
Now, at some point, were you asked to assist investigators in this case against Robert Durst?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and how were you asked to assist?
I was handed financial documents to review and schedule out to determine ins and outs of money flows.
Okay. And who was it that provided you with these financial documents?
The agent on the case, Eric Perry.
Okay. And did he kind of give you a overview of what he wanted you to do with these financial documents?
Yes.
And what was that?
Basically to review the accounts and other financial documents and make schedules out of what kind of ins and outs of the monies there were.
Okay. And when I say the Susan Giordano boxes, is that a term that you're familiar with?
Yes.
And how are you familiar with it?
I was given those documents, which were checks, canceled checks from Agent Perry, and asked to create a document showing cash withdrawals from them.
Okay. And I have a photocopy of one of the pages from People's 170. It's LADA Bates number 126910, and I'm going to project that up on the wolf. If I can. There you go. I'm showing you. I'm going to scroll to the bottom of the document. Do you recognize the format of which this document is?
Yes.
Okay, and how do you recognize it?
I see the Bates stamps.
This number right here?
Correct, yes.
Okay, and that's something that you recognize that as being one of the documents that you reviewed for this
Yes.
assignment?
Yes, sir.
And I'll just leave that up there for the time being. So, what was it that you actually did once you received these checks from the Susan Giordano boxes? What is it that you actually did?
Well, the goal was to see how many checks were cash withdrawals to Mr. Durst. And so I reviewed all the documents, all the checks that I did receive to find out how many there were.
Okay. And were there multiple accounts all in the name of Robert Durst that were contained within these checks?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, was that the universe of documents that you were provided with to complete this project?
Yes.
Now, at some point when you were given this project, did you try to obtain the actual financial records from the accounts associated with these checks that you reviewed in the Susan Giordano boxes?
Yes, we did.
Okay, and were you able to do that?
No, it was beyond the retention period of the bank.
Because you were asking for checks from the year 2000 and 2001?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And by the time that you received this project, was that about 2015?
Yes.
So the checks would have been, or the checks that you reviewed would have been about 14 or 15 years old?
Yes.
Now, did you create a notation or a spreadsheet of your findings based on your review of these checks?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and Your Honor, I have a 2-page printout, which I'd like marked for identification as People's 173.
Yeah. I'm showing counsel.
Now I'm gonna project that up on the Wolf, People's 173, and I'll show you the top page the top portion of the first page. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and how do you recognize that?
It resembles a document that I put together based on the financial checks that I received.
Okay. Now, you were asked to analyze the cash withdrawals of Robert Durst based on the documents you received from the Susan Giordano boxes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you familiar with the term of financial structuring?
Yes, I am.
Can you tell us what that is?
Well, structuring usually when a customer tries to evade the bank's currency transaction reporting requirements by taking large deposits or withdrawals and breaking them into 2 or more smaller
Okay.
transactions.
So, assuming that I walk into a bank, and let's also assume that I have more than $10,000 in the bank. If I walk into the bank and try to withdraw $11,000 from a teller window, can you explain what the process is from a reporting perspective?
Well, anytime a transaction exceeds $10,000, the bank is obligated to report it to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Agency.
Which is a federal government agency?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And if the financial transaction is $10,000 or under, is there a reporting requirement?
They're not obligated to, but they can if it resembles structuring.
Okay, so the obligation triggers at $10,000 and 1 penny.
Correct.
And once that transaction is reported, that means that that transaction, including the account information, the account holder, the withdrawal or deposit amount, that's all contained on the federal government database now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now, in coming to this document, People's 173, when you reviewed the checks, how did you structure this particular document? Is each row here representative of a check?
Yes.
Okay, can you kind of explain what you have? And I'll have the top page of the first page of People's 173. So you have multiple columns,
Yes.
right? And the first column is the date. So what is that?
So that would be the date on the check,
Okay.
and then the next is just basically the month and year, followed by the amount of the check, and then the number in the next column would be the check number.
Okay, let me zoom in here in case people can't see here. Okay, so right here, this column with the 519 in the first row, that's the check number?
Yes.
Okay, and then the financial institution is the account?
Yes, that's where the account was held at.
Okay, not the financial institution where the withdrawal happened, but the financial institute where the account was drawn from? Is that,
That is,
or do they coincide?
sometimes it does. I can't say that they all do.
Okay.
This only represents the financial institution where the account was held.
Okay. And then branch ID, there's a number 124 in the first row. That's the identifier for the location of the branch.
Right.
Okay, and you have also a location tab where you have that information?
Yes. If that was readily available, I was able to put that in there.
Okay. And then finally a note that's the first 2 columns seem to say all 100.
Yes, it was the notation in the memo line on the check.
Okay. Now, when you were reviewing all these checks, did you have to speculate or guess as to any of these entries, or was this information that was all readily apparent to you on the checks themselves?
No, this is all information that was readily available on the check.
Okay. So no guesswork involved.
No, sir.
Okay. And you also divided this by chronological order, and then it looks like for example, right here where it says October 00 total. Do you see that? And it says
Yes.
$18,000.
Yeah, that was
So, can you explain what you did there?
Yes, so that is October 2000 and the total amount of checks for that month.
Okay, and you did that for each of the months, starting with October of 2000, and then showing you the top of the second page of People's 173. Looks up until September of 2001.
Correct.
Okay. So why is it that this document covers, or only covers, the time period from October 2000 through September of 2001?
Well, that was only all the checks that were in the Giordano box that we received.
Okay. Now, again, because you already explained that you were looking for cash withdrawals from Mr. Durst's various accounts. So some of the things that are not contained in the spreadsheet, I have a page from People's 170. It's bait stamped 127073. I'm going to put that up there. You see that check to Susan Berman for $25,000 on March 3rd? I believe that's March 3rd of 1999. You see
Yes.
that? So that's a check that was contained in the boxes, but you did not include that in your spreadsheet analysis?
No, I did not.
And why is that?
We were only looking for cash withdrawals, so to Mr. Durst, as opposed to checks written out to other individuals or entities.
Okay, and the same would apply to another page from People's 170, which is bait stamped 127228, and it was previously identified as People's 118 as well. You see that check as well?
Yes.
And we've already previously discussed this check. This is from November of 2000. So again, this is a check that was not included in your analysis as well.
No, that was not.
Now, I'm going to see if I can. Okay, so I'm going to overlay a couple documents here to make it a little easier. So at the very top, I'm going to have a page from People's 170. It's bait stamp 126892. That's going to be at the top of what you're going to see on the screen in a second. In the middle, I'm going to have a page marked 126910, also from People's 170. And then I'm going to put your spreadsheet, People's 173, on the bottom here. Okay. Okay, so do you see the very top, there's a check for Robert Durst in the amount of $100,000, correct?
Correct.
Now, was that check included in your spreadsheet?
No, it was not.
And why is that?
That appeared to be a bank transfer as opposed to the one underneath it, which was indicated it was cashed at the bank itself.
Okay, so the one underneath, meaning it looks like check number 519,
Yes.
that's also made out to Robert Durst?
Yes.
Okay, but that check, 519, was included on your spreadsheet as reference. It's the first entry, actually, on your spreadsheet, correct?
Yes.
And that corresponds with check 519 from Bank of America?
Yes.
Okay. And why was that one included, but the top one was not?
So the one from Bank of America on the bottom there was a check that was written out in the name of Robert Durst and then was cashed at the branch.
Okay.
The one above it for $100,000 was written out to Robert Durst for $100,000, but was not cashed at the branch.
Okay. So if Robert Durst wrote a check to himself, but then transferred money from, say, Bank of America to a Chase account, that was not calculated in your analysis?
No, that was not.
But if he walked into Bank of America and withdrew $9,000 in cash, which apparently he did on check 519, that was part of your analysis?
Yes.
Now, I want you to assume for a second, and are you familiar somewhat with the facts of this case?
Somewhat.
Of the Susan Berman murder and Morris Black?
Yes.
Okay. I want you to assume that Susan Berman was killed between the late hours of December 22nd, 2000 and the early hours of December 23rd, 2000, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Now, based on what you created here in People's 173, you indicated that the records that you have for cash withdrawal started on October 23rd of 2000?
Yes.
Now, between October 23rd, 2000, up until the date of Susan Berman's murder, it appears that in October he withdrew $18,000 in cash,
Yes.
and then in November another $71,000.
Yes.
So at that point, that's $89,000 in cash?
Yes.
And then, again, December 11th, right here, another 10,000, so that's 99,000.
Yes.
And then the last transaction, December 20, 2000, just 2 or 3 days before her murder, he withdrew another $9,500 in cash.
Yes.
And that was at the Bank of America in Eureka, California.
Yes.
And how did you establish that that transaction took place at Eureka, California?
There's a stamp on the check, and it has the branch ID number, and basically looking it up online, it shows that
Okay.
that is the Eureka, California branch.
And you weren't aware that there was a stipulation that this check, and this check itself has been previously marked as People's 158, which I'll show you weren't previously aware, or as you sit there right now, you're not aware that there was a stipulation that this check was cashed in Eureka?
No, it was not.
Okay, and so you independently, in your investigation, came up with the fact that this check was cashed in Eureka on December 20th?
Yes, the bank ID is on the check.
So is it fair to say that based on your analysis here, from October to the time of Susan Berman's murder, which is approximately 2 months, Robert Durst withdrew $108,500 in cash?
Yes.
Okay. And I want you to further assume that Morris Black was killed on September 28th of 2001, okay?
Okay.
So based on your analysis, from October 23rd, 2000 until Morris Black's death in September 28th of 2001, Robert Durst withdrew, it says, a grand total of $606,000 in cash?
Yes, over that time period, yes.
Okay. And again, you didn't have the original documents or the original banking records. You're relying on the checks that were contained in the Susan Giordano boxes, correct?
Yes.
So that amount, $606,000, that's a confirmed amount as far as cash withdrawals?
Yes, based on the checks that I was able to see.
But because you don't have the actual bank records, that amount can actually be more than that.
Correct.
Okay. I have no further questions of this witness, Your Honor.
Mr. DeGuerin?
Yeah, you can have some of the exhibits. What do you mean? Oh, he switched it. He switched it. Did you? There. Should be. There you go.
Good morning, Mr. Van Dorn. I'm Dick DeGuerin, and I'm one of Mr. Durst's lawyers. We've never met, have we?
No, sir. Good morning.
On the screen is the second page of People's Exhibit 173, your basically listing of all the checks that you were able to find in the Susie Giordano boxes, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There were other accounts and other banks that you analyzed, but this concentrates on almost entirely Bank of America, doesn't it?
There's Bank of America, HSBC, Chase. I would say that maybe most of them come from Bank of America, but I can't.
Yeah,
be
I put it
sure.
A little inexact. Most of the checks that you analyzed in this analysis were from Bank of America, correct?
Yes, that seems correct.
And the column just before it says Bank of America has numbers in it that represent the particular branch where the check was cashed?
No, sir. The number before the bank, the financial institution?
This number, for instance, 709 Bank of America.
That would be a check number.
Check number,
Yes.
okay. So where is the branch at which it was cashed? Is that this number?
Yes.
Oop,
It
what's
was
happening?
blurry, but I know it moves.
There we go.
The one that says branch ID. If it was
Okay.
readily available to find, I included it. If I wasn't able to identify the branch, I did not include it.
Is the reason that on some of the exhibits, you are not able to identify the branch is because of it just not being clear on the check?
Correct. I didn't want to assume where it was cashed.
So we can understand that. The branch at which the check is cashed will stamp the backside of the check, correct?
Yes, for the most part. I believe for the ones where I identified the 124, it's actually in the, it's on the check itself with the bank address, and it was just confirmed via looking at the source information. It was just verified via open source information.
Okay. So let's take, for example, this is one that you were shown. It's check number 1768, and the Bates number on it is 08356. You see that?
Yes, sir.
It has both the front of the check and it has the back of the check,
Yes.
correct?
Correct.
Now, let me ask you, simply because I don't know the answer, did you have the original check to analyze this?
No, it would have been copies.
So, do you know who made the copies?
I do not.
But, so you were provided with the copies of front and back of various checks?
Yes.
All right. Now, the check that's on the screen, that base number 008356, is a check dated June the 6th, 01, $9,000 cash, signed by Robert Durst. And then the back is also endorsed. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you tell from that stamp which branch at which that check was cashed?
From that stamp, no, I can't.
Is that why you didn't put a lot of them on your analysis?
Correct.
Okay. I'm going to put back on the screen something that was on the screen a little earlier. It's actually two pieces of paper with base number beginning 008063. This is out of the big book, I believe.
Correct.
And I want to concentrate on the middle of 3 checks that are on that page. It's a check to Susan Berman for $25,000, and it's dated March the 3rd. That's what's written on the front. But I believe your testimony was that was March the 3rd of 1999?
Yes.
And you determined that, I presume, that date, that is the date of the check, by the reverse side where the bank stamped the check?
Yes.
We can zoom in on that, I believe. What's on the screen now is that middle check to Susan Berman, $25,000, but it's the reverse side, and there appears to be the date 1999, March the, I believe, 18th. 1999. That's what's on the screen. Now
Yes.
tell us, does that mean that Susan Berman cashed that check? Here's the endorsement. On March the 8th, 1999.
It means that's the date it cleared that bank.
That's the date the bank cleared it.
Yeah,
You don't know whether it was cashed or deposited or what,
correct. I can't tell from just looking.
but that it does appear to be Susan Berman in cursive, right?
Good, yes.
Okay. And, you know, we all have checking accounts. We all know that if a check is made out to you, the bank or whoever's going to cash it or deposit it requires you to sign the back,
Correct.
and generally requires some kind of identification.
Yes.
There's some numbers below that. Do you know what that is? That doesn't look to be a social security number. It might be a driver's license number or something. Do you know what it is?
I do not.
Okay. Now let's go back to the check itself. March the 3rd, without a date, but you've determined that that's March the 3rd, 1999, right?
Yes.
You were asked if you were generally familiar with the facts of the Durst case. I assume that means that you were generally familiar that Westchester County reopened their investigation into the disappearance of Mr. Durst's wife in November of 2000. Does that sound correct?
Vaguely. I do know that there was a case reopened. The date I'm not 100% sure on.
Well, let's assume that it was in November of 2000. This check to Susan Berman predates that by a year and a half, doesn't it?
Yes.
In other words, Robert Durst made a check out to Susan Berman, and she negotiated that check for $25,000 a year and a half before the reopening of the case, right?
Yep.
Okay. And let me show you another check to Susan Berman. This is Bates number 009305, and it's been shown to you before. This is one of the checks that you did examine, correct?
Yes, sir.
And did include on your schedule?
No, sir.
Oh, you didn't include it on the schedule?
No.
Why did you not include it on the schedule?
It wasn't a check written out to cash or to Robert Durst.
Okay, so the schedule that we've looked at is only for checks written to Robert Durst?
That were cashed or appeared to be cashed with Durst.
Okay. But this Susan Berman check, November the 9th, that's November the 9th of 2000, isn't it?
I believe so, yes.
All right, let's look at where it's negotiated. Yeah. Okay.
Right there.
Kind of hard to see, but you're used to finding stuff that's hard to see, aren't you?
Yeah, thanks.
And is that November the 21st of 2000?
Yes.
Okay. There appears to be more than just an endorsement of the check on the back, right?
Yes.
I'm showing that's on the screen. Again, this is still the back of that $25,000 check. The date written, November the 9th, but the date cashed, or date transacted, November the 21st of 2000. Let's see if we can, are you able to make that out, what it says?
Roughly, thank you and so much. And
How about, I love you, Bobby. Thank you so much. I'll pay every penny back soon. Have I read that correctly?
that seems correct, yes.
I know things have changed. But back in the day, this was the year 2000, now quite a while ago. Back then, the bank still sent you your the check that you wrote in your statement, didn't they?
Yes.
And so this is a note on the back of the check that Mr. Durst wrote to Susan Berman, in which she says, "I love you, Bobby," and so forth. Right?
Correct.
In other words, even though it's not necessary, it's completely unnecessary to negotiate that check. All that's needed to negotiate the check is her signature, right?
Correct.
Even though it's not necessary, we can assume that that was a check that Mr. Durst would have gotten a copy of when he got his, or the original of, when he got his statement, right?
Yes.
All right. I'm now putting back on the screen the second page of People's Exhibit 173. You've identified, or were able to identify in order to put on your summary here, some checks written in September of 2001 for either $9,500, well, they're all for $9,500.
Yes.
Written on a Bank of America and cashed in Galveston, Texas, correct?
Correct.
Those were checks that were either made out to cash or to Robert Durst, right?
Yes.
And, of course, signed by Robert Durst, drawn on his account, right?
Yes.
Now, you were able to identify those as being cashed in Galveston, Texas. What's the reason you were not able to identify many of the others? Was it because of the stamp was just illegible?
In some cases it was that, or there were multiple stamps, so I didn't want to assume where the location was. This was able to at least locate, I wasn't able to locate a branch, but I was able to locate a city and state.
All right. But at least we know that, from your review, that those 4 checks were cashed at a branch bank of Bank of America in Galveston, Texas, on the dates that they show.
Yes. Well, the dates are the dates on the check.
Right.
Maybe not the dates that they were cashed.
The date written.
Correct.
Okay. Now, in order to go into a bank and cash a check for $9,500 and walk out with the money, the bank's going to require some identification, aren't they?
Yes.
Okay, so we have at least these 4 checks written to Bob Durst or cash and signed by Bob Durst and negotiated in Galveston, Texas. Did you notice on the back of the checks that there is his Texas driver's license noted as the manner of identification?
I'd have to see what the checks do
Yeah.
confirm, but I don't recall. That wasn't something I was including on this chart here.
All right. Generally speaking, isn't it correct that a driver's license or some form of positive identification would be required in order to cash a check of that size.
Generally speaking, yes.
All right. Did you see, from time to time, Mr. Durst's Texas driver's license written on the back side of the check?
I don't recall. I would assume so, but I don't recall. I'd have to see a couple of checks to confirm that.
Okay. Do you know where the Bank of America branch bank in Galveston, Texas is located?
I do not.
Okay. I believe that's all. Thank you.
Redirect exam?
Just briefly. So, when Mr. DeGuerin was telling us that, or asking you about presenting ID in order to cash a check, that's a separate and aside from the reporting requirement which you described earlier, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And just because a bank employee asks for ID to verify identity before cashing a $9,000 check, that doesn't necessarily mean that that transaction gets reported to a government agency?
No, not necessarily.
Okay. And the spreadsheet that you created, People's 173, is it correct that there was 54 total checks contained on that particular document?
Yes.
Okay. And out of those 54 checks, is it fair to say that for transactions that were either $10,000 or under, that 48 of those checks met that criteria?
Yes.
Okay. And that means that 48 out of those 54 checks, there was no mandatory reporting requirement.
Correct.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Nothing further.
May this witness be excused?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
You're excused, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Your Honor, I don't know how you want to handle, we got a video next, so I don't know if you wanted to take a quick break, because I know we're...
Yes, that makes sense to take a break now. Let's make it 10 minutes, just because we're getting out so early at 11 for our lunch break.
Okay.
So let's take 10 minutes now. Do not converse among yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with this case. Do not form or express any opinion on the case.